What if I told you I have a whole other YouTube channel where I already have over 4,000 subscribers and a video with more than 80,000 views, and I only started that channel about a month ago? By contrast, I've had this channel for more than 10 years and have seen nowhere near that level of growth. Why do numbers matter? Because they don't really matter, except they do, because there is such a thing called social proofing. And social proofing is when we judge content, especially online content, by what we perceive as being socially accepted by others. So on YouTube, that means we judge videos by number of views. We judge them by how viral they are. We judge the channel by how many subscribers it has. And these numbers start to mean things in our minds for whether we value a message or a messenger as important or interesting. And again, it doesn't necessarily matter unless if you're trying to communicate a message that you would like to reach a wider audience. So if that is your goal, you are going to need a certain amount of social proofing to have your message even seen by any type of audience. And that is because YouTube's algorithm is set up like a hierarchy, just like our society is set up like a hierarchy. And the way the algorithm judges this hierarchy is based on certain metrics. And those metrics are, in theory, designed to prove if a person or a message is interesting. So I'll explain what I learned about how the algorithm currently works. So the algorithm starts by judging how your video performs in the first 24 hours. Do your followers watch it? Do they engage with it? How long do they watch it for? Because YouTube's real goal is not how many followers you have, but the length of time you spend on YouTube. YouTube would like if you never, ever stopped watching YouTube. It would love if you spent your entire life chain watching YouTube videos. So the algorithm will prioritize videos where people watch them longer. In theory, they're more interested in them. And if after they finish that video, if they then go to another video on your channel and watch all of that video, and in YouTube's best case scenario, you watch a series of videos on a person's channel. If you are binge watching content, YouTube's algorithm loves you. It also loves when viewers engage with the content. So if you like, if you dislike, if you leave a nice comment, if you leave a neutral comment, if you leave a nasty comment, any engagement YouTube loves. And the last thing the algorithm loves is your click-through rate. How well you can convert someone clicking on your thumbnail to then watching your video, to then watching the whole video, to then watching another video and another video and another video. That is what the algorithm deems as interesting and important. So if the algorithm judges that your video has passed these tests and has performed well, it will then push your video out to the second tier of its hierarchy, which is a wider audience. And it will then judge your video again based on harder and harder metrics tests. If your video passes those tests, it will then get pushed out to the third tier, which is an even wider audience. So if you fail any of those tests, YouTube's algorithm will essentially kill your video. So what I mean by saying the algorithm pushes your video out or not is that when you are watching YouTube and you see videos appear in your feed as being related to other videos you've watched in a long string of suggestions, and by the way, largely what we see and what we click on are the videos that show up in that stream, that is YouTube's algorithm pushing your content out to a wider audience. But if YouTube's algorithm doesn't think your content is interesting because it has failed those metrics tests, it will stop pushing the content and your video won't ever show up in anyone's suggested feed. So it becomes very, very difficult for anyone to discover or find your video organically. So that is why a video could have maybe a certain amount of views in the first day or so, and then never have any views ever again for 10 years. I've seen this happen. So this is frustrating because we think of the internet as being this egalitarian, open sourced place where we can just discover any kind of content that anyone posts on there. And we trust this social proofing where if there's a lot of views on a video, it must be because of interest level. But we don't consciously think that maybe if an algorithm has killed your video, it has actually contributed to this social proofing problem. So if you're a small channel, if you're a new channel, if you are a channel that has very different, new, innovative information that's never been seen before, and the algorithm doesn't judge it well, it will contribute in a negative way to your social proofing problem. So if you have like 5 views on your video, for example, versus another similar video that has like, I don't know, 12,000 views, you're probably going to click on the video with 12,000 views, and you're probably going to see that video come up in your suggested feed anyway, because it has more interest and engagement according to the hierarchical standards of how your video is judged. If you have a video with 5 views because you're a new channel, because your information is unknown, because you're unknown, and you're already suffering from the problem of having 5 views socially, you're going to have trouble getting people to even watch your video, which means that the algorithm is going to judge your video negatively and is going to deprioritize it and not push it out, which means it's still going to have 5 views a week later. And then people are going to start looking at a video that sat there for years with 5 views, and they're going to think to themselves, why has this video sat here for 5 years with 5 views? And it is a negative feedback loop that is very hard to break and deeply unfair. There's this sort of invisible layer of blockages that most people don't consciously think of because they don't know, because I didn't know, even being on YouTube for 10 years, that this is how the algorithm actually worked. So there's more. If the algorithm starts to look at your YouTube channel and it tries to decide what category it should push your information out to, like what category of interest it should find viewers to send your information to. If you're posting about a lot of different topics and a lot of different things in maybe like a vlog style, like this channel sort of is, YouTube is going to hate your channel because it really does well with super defined, super narrow categories. So it wants to see content always about the same topic in a similar genre, about similar information, so that it can correctly judge it, objectify it, and push it out to an objectified, narrow audience. Again, sounds logical in terms of how an algorithm might find an audience that matches your content, but we all know that in the reality of making content and the reality of being a human being, we are not just objectified into one category. We are multi-dimensional, interesting human beings. And actually the most interesting content takes that into account. So what YouTube is doing is it's not just trying to look for channels that already do that. It's actually setting the tone so that YouTube creators are taught to then behave that way. So it's making for some very boring, very one-dimensional content and some very one-dimensional looking people who in reality, in day-to-day life, are not that one-dimensional. But when we come on the YouTube, your YouTube video will die if you do not clearly define your category. So now that I know all of these things, That's why I went out and made not just one new channel, but several, because it is not a good idea to do all the mistakes that I made on this channel that I really don't feel are genuine human mistakes. I am posting about spiritual awakening, spiritual teaching. Spirituality touches every aspect of our lives. So when we talk about a spiritual awakening, you are going to make videos that touch on many different topics. Yes, they're technically all under the umbrella of spirituality, but it still won't do as well as a super defined channel about, say, crystals, or a super defined channel about, say, Reiki. That is in the umbrella of spirituality, but super narrowed down. And YouTube will then be able to correctly push that to its appropriate audience. It was in my best interest to make an entirely new channel that is specifically in the crosshairs of feminism and spirituality. Spiritual Truth plus Feminist Theory is my new channel called Sacred Feminist. And I am inviting you, if you are still watching, which I so appreciate if you are, to go check that out. I wish all the views and all the followers I could just collect and put on this channel with the information that I've brought to light here about my experience of spiritual awakening in times of chronic pain, about my experience as a spiritual teacher, about the feminist implications of that, about how if we change our relationship to pain, we can change our relationship to blame and also change society itself. So I've taken that portion of this vlog style channel and I've put it now on the Sacred Feminist channel, where I will also be having an upcoming podcast under the same name, which I am also inviting you to check out. So definitely check out this one particular video. I will still be posting on this channel, as it does give a more well-rounded background of who I am, what I'm about. And I think when you look at a person's message, you do want to know a bit more about why they're saying this message and where they come from. So even though this channel has technically been what most people would call a failure, I'm going to keep this failure on here and keep posting on it. There is value in treating content differently and people differently than just objects in a hierarchy. It is valuable to see a well-rounded channel with well-rounded information and a well-rounded person. And I hope that while I'm going to need to keep the other channels very well-defined and keep the content in their very narrow categories, it's much easier to see the wholeness of my being by looking at this channel, Sruti. So you'll see more about the illness I've suffered, the pain that I've gone through, the strength that I've gained from it, how my spiritual awakening has changed me, how it can change you, and also how I've been treated as a spiritually awakened young woman in a world that still seems not quite ready from a feminist perspective. So again, thank you to anyone who has still been watching, and please join me on my other channels. I'd so love to have you there. Thank you guys. In 2018, I had an allergic reaction to an ear piercing that radically changed my life. Luckily, due to a unique spiritual awakening, I was able to come off of prednisone and reclaim my life. I believe that what I learned during all those years of pain and suffering can help you overcome your problems too. For my spiritual teachings, check out my website, my YouTube, and my book.